I have this core memory from when I was 6 years old. I remember it so well that I tell it every time I'm exchanging scary stories with someone. I remember I was sitting next to my mom while she was on the toilet. The door was wide open, exposing part of the kitchen counter. I remember seeing a genuine ghost, and its appearance was hard to see because it was almost invisible. It was like translucent. It had no hair, no body, just a head with hands pulling its bottom eyelids downwards, which made its mouth also go downwards, making it look like it was making a sad face. You know how when you want to make it look like you have completely white eyes, you pull down your bottom eyelids with your hands and look up so your eyes go white? That's the best way I could describe it. What was it doing? Except wasn't looking up so its eyes go white. It was just looking at me while pulling its lower eyelids down. It's very hard to explain how it looked, but I once drew it, and it looked very similar to what I saw. I remember I started tearing up, and I kept pointing at it, hoping my mom would see what I saw, but she didn't. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I really want them to be real, and this is just little proof that they could be real. I could have been hallucinating or something, as I didn't sleep properly that night, but I really don't. But I don't really hallucinate. I know that some people won't believe me. Sometimes I don't even believe myself because of how skeptical I am of ghosts existing. But at the end of the day, I know exactly what I saw, and that same face will forever haunt me. Growing up, my little brother and I shared everything: a room, a Xbox. We even shared the same cell phone for a few years. Never thought we would share the same nightmare. This was way back in 2013. I remember it because I was excited to see Iron Man 3. The movie sucked, but it was fun seeing all the different suits. Anyway, we ended up passing out late that night after a few rounds of Call of Duty. This is when I had one of the scariest nightmares of my life. I remember being in my bed and just laying there, not being able to move. My chest felt heavy. My head was turned towards my little brother's bed. All I could see was this figure creeping over my little brother as he was sleeping. It was tall and thin and completely cloaked in a Grim Reaper type robe. Its back was facing me, and I could hear this thing breathing while it reached its shadowy clawed had towards my little brother's face. I tried screaming, but nothing came out. It reached out and picks him up while he's still asleep. I try to move, but it feels like there's nothing, an elephant on my chest. This thing straightens its back while it's standing up. Holding my brother in his arms, it turns to face me, and its face, well, it was and wasn't there. Its face was this consistently moving shadow that looked like a silk cloak with frayed edges. The edges looked like they were flickering, like they were a flickering flame or something, but there was no light. It stared down at me, whispering something I couldn't hear. Tears are streaming down my cheeks at this point while this thing turns and walks into the wall, vanishing from sight while still holding my brother. I'm trying with everything I have to stand up, but it feels like all the energy was sucked out of me. I close my eyes, then I wake up. I was sweating everywhere. Stop immediately. I looked at my brother. He was still asleep. I started packing around and popping my knuckles, thinking about what the hell I just dreamed about. I wiped my sweaty hands on my boxers and grabbed my towel to take a shower. Before I head to the bathroom, my brother sits up and just looks at me. I look back at him and says, "Hey man, glad you're okay. I just had the most fucked up dream about you." He looked at me with an exhausted expression and said, "I had a fucked up dream too. Some monster thing kidnapped me and I couldn't move. You didn't do anything but cry and go back to sleep." I stood there in shock. Did he and I have the same dream? I asked him, did the monster look like the Grim Reaper with a weird shadowy face? I swear it looked like he just shit his pants when I said this. He nods and says, "Yeah, did you see it too?" I nodded, told him about my dream. We both had the same dream with the same details, just from different points of view. We still have no clue how we were able to share a dream or what that sinister shadow figure was. I still think about that dream, and I can still remember it's void of a face. Opening the door to a shadow man. When I was about 13 or 14, my uncle had recently been murdered. And my mother and I can't remember if our older brother was with us, moved in with my uncle's wife and daughter. She is older than me by a few years. It's only been a few months after his passing, and his daughter and I were home alone one night. We were watching soccer, and out the corner of my eye, I see a shadow outside the window next to the front door. I turn my head to look better. A man with a cowboy hat, like my uncle used to wear, and a jacket. It was all dark, but you could tell the shape. Anyways, it walked up the 4 steps to the front door, stopped. I don't know what came over me. I was not thinking. I just got up and walked to the door and opened it. Nobody was there. My uncle's daughter asked me what I was doing, and it kind of snapped me back to my senses, and I said I saw someone walking to the door. She told me to shut it, and that was it for that day. I was left with an odd feeling. In 2020, I got a hobby to sell stuff I didn't use. It also ruined my work life, so I had to find ways to earn extra money. In my post, I said I can meet the buyer as it makes it easier to sell stuff. This woman texted me that she wanted to buy. I took the metro to meet her on an evening night. From the platform, I walked up some stairs. She was there as agreed. I handed over the thing. She paid me. I thought we were done, but she was very talkative. She said she had been looking through my photos and asked if I was a model, then followed up with, "Do you want me to drive you home?" Then why didn't she just drive to my address and pick it up in the first place? I looked towards the car. It was black, standing there in the dark place. Inside it, I could see 3 guys staring at me. I, of course, took the metro back. When I arrived home, she sent me an SMS. She got my number because we used an app to pay with, and to do so, it needs our number. She thanked me for the stuff I sold her and told me she would like to meet me again. I went to her profile on Facebook. She was also married to a man. I don't know what would have happened if I got into the car. One day, when I was 5 years old, I was taking a bath after I had completely ruined my knee while falling down a hill on my bike and fallen off the bike. My grandma's sponge was sitting on the sink counter near the edge. I had also been dabbing the injuries with a cloth too. My grandma's sponge came flying towards me from the counter. It hit me in the head. I stood up and screamed. My mom came rushing into the room, half asleep. I explained what had happened, and she left the room and grabbed the cross off the wall in the living room. She started chanting, "All evil entities in this room shall be banished back to where they came from," or something like that. Then she got me out of the bath and dried me off. The next day, she came home with a cross necklace and a pastor as they started blessing the house. We haven't had any more things happen since, other than after that day, like clockwork. I would open my bathroom window and talk to someone. I kept saying it was my grandpa, but it freaked my parents out so badly that they glued shut my window. I started crying every night until I was 8. Then I stopped crying and never spoke of anything paranormal again until today. Alright guys, I think that's enough stories for today. I'll talk to you guys in another one. Thank you and goodbye. Also, I'm going to try to get better at saying these properly instead of sounding like a robot. So, yeah. Alright, thank you guys. Have a nice one.